Hello everybody, and welcome to Mr. Zimmet's virtual classroom. I know this is going to be a little bit different, but given the situation, I wanted to be able to provide you with an actual lesson about what we're doing in math. Last week was all review, and you guys showed great proficiency in understanding the knowledge that you'd been taught over the course of the year and applying that to the first week worth of material. So great job. This week is going to be new though. This week we're doing something called conditional probability. What I've done over here is I've copied down problem number 1 from week 2, day 3 onto my worksheet over here. So I'm going to be talking about it step by step, how we're going to approach this problem number 1, and my hope is that by the end of the video you'll know how to do both problem number 1 as well as know how to apply that knowledge to the rest of the problems on the worksheet. So, without further ado, let's begin this conditional probability. What we first notice is a table here. We have a table with less than high school education, high school, some college, and college. And we have people making under $20,000, between $20,000 and $30,000, and over $30,000. And over here we have the corresponding numbers of people that fit into each one of those categories. So that's just the background of what's happening here. And part A is asking us, P parentheses means the probability of. So part A is asking us the probability of an employee having less than a high school education. And in order to do that, I need to first know how many people there are in total. So if I add up all of these different people, then I get a total number, which I've already done, and I will record over here in blue. The total is 1,200 people. So I'm recording that over there. I also need to know the number of employees that have less than a high school education, because that's what it's asking us. So I would total the number of people that have less than a high school education, which would be 69 plus 36 plus 2, gives me 107. And now this part we've done before. The probability of having less than a high school education out of the total is just going to be that fraction. I'll have 107 having less than a high school education over my total 1,200 employees. That's my fraction. I can write it as a decimal by actually dividing. I get 0.09 or 9%. And that's how I figure out part A. Again, that P parentheses means the probability of. I take the number of people that have a less than high school education, which is 107, over my total, which is 1,200, and I get that it's a 9% chance of occurring. If you need to pause the video at this point, feel free to do so. I'm going to be continuing on to part B. Part B is very similar. Part B asks us the probability of an employee earning under $20,000. So now I have to figure out how many people earn under $20,000. So now I have to total up this column that corresponds with under 20,000. So I have 69 plus 112 plus 102 plus 13 gives me 296. And now all I have to do is write that fraction again, 296, making under 20,000 out of a total of 1,200 people. That gives me 0.25 or 25%. Hopefully at this point this is all clear and is reminiscent of things that you've done in the past. Parts C through F get a little bit more complicated. Part C asks us the probability that an employee earns over $30,000 and, highlight that and, has less than a high school education. So what I do with that whenever I have an and statement is I figure out where in this table those two columns and rows intersect. So earning over $30,000 is this column on the right, and having less than a high school education is this top row over here. So they intersect right here at my 2, which I will circle. So there's only 2 people that have both less than a high school education and make over $30,000. So that kind of makes sense, because if we have less education, we're less likely, although not guaranteed, to make less money. And that's what this is showing us over here. You have a 2 out of, again, our total of 1,200 people, 2 out of 1,200 chance, or 0.002 or 0.2% chance of earning over $30,000 while having less than a high school education. So that's where we're at so far. Again, feel free to pause the video wherever you need to. Part D is asking us a similar question, the probability that an employee earns under $20,000 and has a college degree. I encourage you guys to pause the video for a second to figure it out on your own, but I will say it right now. Under $20,000 is this column and has a college degree. I'll circle it. They intersect right here at 13. Right there. So that is 13 over 1,200, which is the same thing as 0.01 or 1% approximately. So this is, again, a small likelihood of them making under $20,000 while having a college degree, which again makes sense because you'd expect that if you have the more education you have, the more money you would make. Part E is asking us something that is completely new to us, this conditional probability. So the way that we read this when it has this little line here is that means given that. So we have the probability that an employee earns over $30,000 given that he only has or she only has a high school education. So in this case, we only look at the high school education. That's our given. So again, we're going to want to total that up. Our 112 plus 98 plus 14 gives us 224 employees that we're working with. 224 employees have only a high school education. And now, what's the likelihood out of those 224 employees, so only in this row, only in that row, what's the probability of them earning over $30,000? Well, we can see that there's 14 people, 14 out of, again, our smaller total here, the people just having a high school education, out of 224 total employees, which gives us 0.06 or 6%. So again, that's how we go with given. And finally, part F, I encourage you to pause the video, try to solve it yourself, and then come back to the answer. Part F has the probability that an employee has less than a high school education given, this line means given, that they earn over $30,000. So now we're only going to be concerned with this column. We're given that they make over $30,000. So we total them up. 2 plus 14 plus 143 plus 245 gives us 404 total employees. So that is our denominator. We have out of 404, how many of those people have less than a high school education? We can see that it's just 2. 2 out of 404 gives us 0.005 or 0.5%. So now I have my answers for every problem here for problem number 1. So I expect definitely all of you guys to get problem number 1 correct, but also to be able to apply this knowledge to the rest of the worksheet. And this is our first online lesson. I hope that you guys are able to understand. They are able to pause the video when necessary. And with that, I will sign off and see you again for another lesson. Goodbye.